such as it is. I've got some bay leaves. They're just growing like crazy. Bay leaves took off. I had strawberries. I love flowers. This is my best. This area here seems to get the most sunlight, and it seems to work the best. Gladiolas, my mom's favorite plant, so I always have. She had them the year round on the windowsills at home. Verbenas, they come in different colors. They come in purple and red, and they're a very, very hardy plant. They love sunshine. Rhubarb takes about 2-3 years to become well established, and once it's established, it grows every year. See, and you cut off the stalks. See how thick they get? So you cut this off here and cut it off. You strip the things off and then chop up the inside, boil it up, and then add water, boil it up, leave it boiling for 10-15 minutes, slow boil. Let it cool off, add your favorite sweetener, honey or maple syrup, and it's a dessert. Eat it as a dessert, but it's very healthy. People don't want to put in the labor of peeling it and chopping it up and boiling it, and I don't know. Rhubarb has always been around. The older families, the last generation, remember I'm 80 years old, so I go back several generations. I grew up with this stuff. We had it on the farm. Every farmer grew rhubarb. You know, you had dirt, you had soil, you had compost, you had a pile. You just put some rhubarb in there, and you know, everybody had their own vegetable garden. You didn't go to Save-On or Safeway and buy your, you know, you grew everything. You had a milk cow, you milked it, you made your own butter, you had your own cream. The cream that was left over, we sold to the creamery. When I look back now at my age, what I took for granted when I was 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, being on the farm, that was the best experience of my life. At the time, I didn't think it was so great because I had to get up early in the morning and go out and feed the cattle and the horses and the pigs. And you had to put on the old work clothes and do the chores and then come in the house and clean up and eat breakfast and go to school, hop on a bus, go 28 miles a day to a little town that was actually only 2 miles away from the farm, but the bus went all around to pick up the kids from all the farms, so it was a 28-mile trip to the school. I was 12, 13, 14. Then when I was 15, we moved into the little town, moved off the farm. But being on a farm and having the farm experience was the best teacher of my life. You have to do hard work whether you liked it or not, because the animals need to be looked after. They need to be fed, and they came first, so you had to do the chores. So you learned to accept responsibility. And if you didn't like it, that's too bad. That's just the way of life. Get over it. Okay? So where in today's world do you get that kind of experience? You know? And when I was 13 years old, I was already driving a 3-ton farm truck 12 miles to an elevator full of grain, loaded with grain. I could barely reach the clutch. When I went down to reach the clutch, you wouldn't see my head. Okay, and then I'd come back up and I'd be driving, and the guys at the elevators would laugh, you know, to see a 13-year-old come with a 3-ton farm truck hauling grain to the elevator. That would be unheard of today. It's illegal, it wouldn't be allowed, but back in those days, I'm talking 53, 54, every farm kid knew how to drive all the tractors, all the machinery, knew how to do chores, look after the animals. All of that was part of your life. Where does a kid in the city learn that kind of down-to-earth experience? Can't. So I've got a lot of experience in my when I think of what farming was like in the 50s to what farming is like today. It's a totally different world. One farmer with several machines, can do what 5 or 6 men had to do manually on the farm back in those days. He can bale the big round bales. They weigh probably a ton and a half. The machine bales the hay. He has a special machine, a tractor that picks up the bales, puts them, stacks them on a place on the farm, you know. He picks up a big bale and distributes them to the herd, to the cow. One guy doing all of that, and he doesn't do any physical labor. The machines do everything. When I was 13, 14 years old, I was behind, my dad would bale, and the rectangular bales, you still see them today, rectangular bales. Some of them would weigh anywhere from 50 to 80 pounds, depending on what you were baling. So they come out of the back of the machine, and they were what we called a little stone boat. That was a little wooden platform with skids on it. So the bale would come out of the baler, and I would stack 6 on the platform. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you pushed it off the ground. So you had all these. So now you have to come, after you're finished baling, you have to come with a hay rack and a tractor, pick up each bale, put it on the hay rack, stack it. It's hotter. It's like you're working just flat out in hot, sweating, dusty. Then you drive it to the hay pile. Then you have to manually pile it, make a pile on the hay pile. 10,000 bales by hand. You're 13 and 14 years old. You're tough. You're a tough kid. And that's just something you did. You didn't complain about it. You just did it, but you were in physical shape, you know, and you had a lot of knowledge. And you never looked at it as, oh, gee, I know a lot, I have a lot of knowledge. You never thought of it. This is just part of your way of life. You learned from your parents what to do and what not to do. And when you made a mistake and you screwed up, well, you learned what not to do. Your parents might get angry, your dad might get angry at you if you did it 2 or 3 times, you know. Well, I can remember things when I was 3 and 4 years old. I was born what used to be East Germany, right on the Polish-German border before the Second World War. We were maybe 1 or 2 kilometers away from the Polish border. Then the Second World War broke out, and my grandfather had a team of horses. He worked with horses, plows, working the land. We lived in a village of maybe 150 people, or small village, yeah.
Big, yeah.
But everybody was a farmer in the village. Everybody had a little bit of land. And the people who had the most land were the richest farmers. The more land you had, the richer you were. I was told we had the 2nd largest farm in the village. We were well off. We had a 3-story brick house, and my grandfather married well into my grandmother's side, who owned land and did very well marrying my grandmother, okay? So he would go out into the fields, and every day after work, in the evening when he came back with the horses, I would run down the road and greet him, and he would pick me up and put me on top of the horse so I could ride the horses back into the farmstead. And we had big, big wooden doors, about 15 feet high, that you opened the big doors, and the farmstead was closed off from the street outside, okay? So we had a big orchard in the back of the barn. And I remember I was 3 years old, and I would tell my mother, I remember running to meet Opa when he came from the fields, and he would put me on top of the horse, and I would get to ride into the farmstead. That was my most vivid memory as a 3-year-old, you know. But then the war broke out in 40. There's some interesting stories there. I was born in late May of 40, and my father was in the army already. He was at the front in Russia, and he heard that I was born, and so he managed to come home once, and my mother was scared out of her life because this is several years into 42, 43, and we were taken over by Polish people. And the Poles were living in our house, and Dad snuck in at night to see me, and my mother just about fainted. She said, "You can't be here. If they catch you, they'll kill you." So he never even got to see me, and that was his trip back to see his son. So those are horror stories about the war. I don't even want to. I could tell those, but I don't want to go into the negative stuff. War is hell for everyone, for both sides. You know, it's not a good thing. But there are forces in this world that continue to make sure that there are always wars, that we always fight with one another, that there is no peace. The forces working for peace, until recently, have not been successful against the forces that want war. And we're still fighting that battle. And I'm hopeful that in the next generation or two, we can raise our consciousness high enough that we will finally put an end to war and learn to discover that we have far more things in common than things that separate us. And if we concentrate on what we have in common, family, love of children, love of community, everybody wants to raise their children in a healthy, proper, normal, productive way. We can all get along, no matter what religion you are, no matter what race you are, no matter what color of your skin. We all have the same interests. We want to reproduce, we want to raise our children in a safe environment, get on with life, not do the friction, the hateful thing. But when you look over history, that's what we've done. One group or another has always risen to the top, created war for one reason or another, and we've never gotten out of the war mode. And it's time that this time around, that enough people will become conscious and say, enough is enough. Let's work together rather than fight against each other. So that is my hope and my dream, that this will be possible. Be as truthful as you possibly can be, because the truth is like a lion. It doesn't need help to defend itself. If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about somebody coming back at you, well, you said this the other day, and today you say something else. Well, no, I'm saying the same thing yesterday, I'm saying the same thing today. The truth stays the same. You don't get mixed up. But if you tell lies, you have to remember the lie you told 2 days ago with the lie you told yesterday and the lie you're telling today. Eventually you're going to get it mixed up with all the lies, and it'll trip you up. That's why when you're truthful and honest, what have you got to worry about? There's nothing coming back at you. That's why someone much wiser than me said, every lie has two lies in it. The lie you tell yourself and the lie you tell others to justify that you are lying. When I saw that, I said, oh, that's brilliant. I wish I had thought of that. That's good.